Hello and welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome to episode 5 of the Game of Thrones Cinema Savvy watch-along, review, recap, whatever we're calling it. This episode was called Eastwatch, as in Eastwatch by the Sea. And before we go into this episode, we usually, I have to obviously introduce the co-people. We have Chris Garner, we have George Aldridge on the muted mic at the moment.
I'm walking home from work again.
Also,
again.
all the way from the King's Road.
Yes. I mean, I teleport almost as quickly as these guys do these days.
Yes, you do.
Also, it's Tayton's birthday, so everyone go comment happy birthday. He always gets upset. He gets no love in the comments, so this could be his first time.
Hashtag, I'm still not over the whole Logan argument.
At least you had a wonderful birthday.
But anyway, yes, I did. If you guys want to know, George got me High Rise for my birthday. I don't like High Rise. If you remember, it was my worst voted film of last year. It may have been one of the worst films I've ever seen. He got me on Blu-ray. So I don't know. We're keeping an eye on George this evening. But anyway. Let's get on to talking about Game of Thrones, and we'll start off with talking about last episode.
Yes, so every episode now we pose questions to the viewers at home watching, and the question for last week's episode, The Spoils of War, was actually a two-part question. The first question was, who do you think really won the battle? Do you think it was Dany, or do you think she was harmed by that battle? Or do you think the Lannisters won? We had a few comments from people. So we had one from Richie Rich who said, I can't say that either Daenerys or the Lannisters won this battle. Cersei got her gold, but lost a good portion of her army. Daenerys conquered a good portion of Cersei's army, but also blew up all of the food and supplies that they looted from Highgarden. The same food that she said she needed to feed the Dothraki earlier in the episode. She also proved that the dragons can be injured, but not easily. So I'm thinking that next time Qyburn may add insurance to the ballista bolts in the form of poison. If there was a victor in this battle, I would have to say it goes to House Stark. Jon's wise words to Daenerys makes him the best advisor that she has had so far in the entire show. We also had one from Claudia, who said, I don't think Cersei lost because she has the gold, the Iron Bank's confidence and willingness to fund her war efforts, and she probably knows that if Jaime is taken prisoner, Tyrion will help him if she has any feelings for Jaime at all. And we also had one from 55 Beulah, who said, Dany won the battle, most of the Lannister army is gone, and Dany still has most of her Dothraki, and even though Drogon was hurt, he is going to be A-OK. And the second question we asked was, how would we rank that battle at the end? What was it? The battle of the... What was it called? The train?
It was the loot train attack.
The loot train attack. We asked you at home, how would you compare that to other action scenes? Claudia says, for me, the Battle of the Bastards is still my favorite, even though this one was awesome. I wasn't horrified and in panic as much as I was when Jon almost suffocated to death. There was also more of a clear good versus evil battle when it comes to the Battle of the... I was going to say Battle of the Brackets then. I almost did it again. So yeah, general...
check out our show Battle of the Brackets.
Yes. General consensus across the board seems to be people saying Battle of the Bastards is slightly better. Battle of Winterfell as well got a mention with Stannis and his forces. And Hardhome as well. 55 Beulah says that it didn't quite come close to the awesomeness that was Hardhome. Also, it was equal to the awesomeness that was Hardhome. So yeah, that's
I'm not going to lie, but I still enjoy Watchers on the Wall. I think that one has a lot going for it, and I feel like I had more of an emotional punch towards the end of Watchers on the Wall with Ygritte's death. I feel like that was probably one of the most complete fight sequences / episodes, even though Battle of the Bastards did it better. I feel like that is a more complete battle scene. I still love that one. But I do think the loot train attack was absolutely phenomenal. Complete annihilation on one side. I saw a thing today. Someone sent me a birthday message which said, blow out the candles, and it was Drogon swooping in, just blowing fire on everything. So that pleased me a lot. But anyway, this was a very hard episode to write about. You guys don't really know behind the scenes, but usually I spend a reasonable amount of time trying to figure out which order to discuss things in. We usually go from north to south. We couldn't really do that this episode. because everything is completely jumbled out of order.
Yeah, no.
From north to south.
We were trying to come up with different ways of doing it, and I think we've sided with just sticking with character journeys through this one. So if we talk about Jon Snow, we'll talk about his journey in this episode, beginning to end. It's just easier to talk about. I think it's fair to say that this episode was a lot more exposition-filled than previous ones. I think George summed it up the best because he saw it before any of us. He called it was like a bridging episode to get us to episode 6, episode 7, which sounds just, it's episode 5, of course it is, but it's setting up bigger things to come. It's kind of like episode 1 of all the seasons where it's getting us back on track with things and setting things up. This is kind of the mid-season equivalent of that.
I'd say that the next episode is probably going to be like the equivalent of episode 9, really. And this is like episodes 6, 7, and 8 kind of rolled into one, just kind of keeping it ticking over. Not much happens. The big events have already taken place. It's the recovery of those events. It's the aftermath, and it's building up towards the end. Game of Thrones.
I think next episode is going to...
If Game of Thrones always goes first episode, second episode, third episode, fourth episode, fifth episode, sixth episode, seventh episode, eighth episode, ninth episode, way up, 10th episode slightly further down.
Yeah, and this one actually has become the most viewed episode in the series so far. Apparently, 10.72 million people watched it. That's according to Wikipedia, so it's still on a high.
That's because everybody wanted to find out what happened to Jaime and Bronn.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Disappoint. But I will say, if you look at all the other Game of Thrones series, normally episode 3 or 4, something major always happens. So, in one you had Jaime versus Ned to a degree. I know it's the opening season still.
That was episode 5, series 1.
Okay, so that's like the halfway point.
In series 2 or 3, you had Craster's Keep and
series 3. Season 4, you had Tyrion's court case. That that was later.
No, that was episode 7. In 4, you had episode 2, Joffrey's death.
Yep. So the way I've always looked at the Game of Thrones seasons is that episode 9 is always the one, which is obviously this year's episode 6. But there's always a big moment in the opening third of the series, and because this is so mumble jumbled, you can tell that normally, if this was a normal season of 10, Castle Rock would have been in episode 3, a big moment. But they swooped over it and did the episode 4 stuff, which is absolutely perfect with me because, I'd happily sacrifice a montage to get that dragon scene and everything that happened after. But now it's straight up like the way this episode went. I mean, I went up at 1:50 saw it at 2. And I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but because it was the first time this season that I'd live streamed it from HBO. Not that I'm doing it illegally over here in England or anything. I was kind of I was buzzing to see what happened and everything. And then the episode kind of I wouldn't say it finished, but when you're 40 minutes in, okay, this is going to be the episode that sets everything up. And now I'm just literally ready and waiting for next week. But you need these episodes. It's almost like episode 1. You need the episodes to progress the series.
Yeah, I kind of would like more episodes to set things up because we've talked about it before, the teleporting in this show. I think out of all the episodes so far, this is the one where I really noticed it. And I think a lot of people noticed it this episode. It feels like an abridged version of the series to just get characters from A to B as quickly as possible because we're doing 7 episodes with this one. We talked about that at length last time and our thoughts on cutting it down, characters teleporting. I think it's just something we need to accept for this series at this point.
But anyway, okay, so this confusing episode that we are going to now try and dissect. We are going to start at the very, very beginning of the episode with the title sequence, funnily enough. I didn't actually put this in the plan, but I want to mention it. We don't usually, towards the later ends of the show, get new areas on the title sequence. I think the last one was Old Town, which I really like from the series. Really, really like Old Town. But immediately for the episode called Eastwatch, we get Eastwatch by the Sea, the second place next to the Wall. And it's funny, they always do, whenever they do like the Wall in the Game of Thrones intro, they say the Wall. They don't call it Castle Black. But this one they've actually called Eastwatch, which I thought was just kind of a little bit interesting. But it means that next episode, obviously, they're going to go back to Eastwatch, even though the episode is probably going to be set mostly beyond the Wall. Maybe there's going to be a few things with Davos and maybe some interactions with people who are going past the Wall again to help aid the mission of uniting the 7 or whatever we're going to call it from this episode.
Yeah, but I always like when they... Yeah. Oh, sorry. So I was going to say, I always like when they add new locations.
It's quite difficult to describe, but it's like it's built into the cliff, and it's got it out for where you have all of these supports that bring it up, which is different to Castle Black, which just has the one narrow chute. And it's nice to kind of, we don't get to see these things in the books. I know that a lot of places are described. There are other ones. There are other mentioned towers from the Night's Watch.
Loads, yeah.
So many that we never actually get to see. We've seen an abandoned one, which Sam let Bran through in series 4, 3, 4.
4, I think.
We then have Castle Black, obviously, and now we have Eastwatch. So even towards the end, I say with less than 10 episodes to go now, the show is still expanding, which is really cool to see. Anyway, now we're into the actual episode. The first point I've got here is Jaime is saved by Bronn the Shark.
So our last shot of Jaime at the end, and there was a great meme, or just I guess people pointing it out. So when Jaime is trotting towards Daenerys, holding his lance ready to spear her, it's in ankle high water for the horse, and then as soon as he's tackled by Bronn, it turns into the Laurentian abyss, and he's just sinking seemingly endlessly into a bottomless pit of water. So we pick up right from this episode where Bronn
I'll stick my hand up. A lot of people have been arguing about that on the internet, funnily enough. Enough for me to actually go and do a little bit of research. The river where they are, which is near King's Landing, I can't remember the name of it, but apparently has very, very shallow in the marshes. And then as soon as you go past the marshes, it's a very, very deep drop in the mud. So I guess it could have been explained more, maybe with having a Lannister soldier fall in and them saying, "Oh, be careful, make sure you don't fall all the way down," or anything like that.
It sounds as convenient as a sort of Star Wars plot hole that they do in their comics when people cry about what's canon and what's not.
But the thing is, George, they mentioned it in the books out of context of this scene because the scene has not taken place in the books yet.
Oh, I know.
So it's a thing that happened in the books, which has been kind of used here, but wasn't really explained to showgoers. So casual watchers who don't care enough to go on the internet and argue about things, which isn't actually many people, will obviously think, "Oh, well, that's a bit stupid." But if people going on the internet arguing about things, it's just extra fodder onto the fire of I only watch the TV show, I only read the books, I do both.
I'm both. I read half of the first book, and you know what? I'm just going to rewatch series 1. I only rewatched half of series 1, so I guess that's just everything you need to know.
For anyone interested, I'm about 3/4 of the way through book 2. I'm about to hit Blackwater, the Battle of Blackwater. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah,
I have read all the books, but it's been years and years. I'm kind of tackling another epic fantasy novel at the moment with Lord of the Rings, so it's going to be a while before I get back to Song of Ice and Fire.
When Winds of Winter comes out, I'm assuming you're going to read that immediately, yes?
What's that? Sorry, Winds of Winter? No, I am going to have to go way back and start Game of Thrones again because I've forgotten everything that's happened in A Dance with Dragons and everything before.
You've still got a long period of time before Winds of Winter comes out. Anyway, yes. So Jaime is saved. Bronn kind of puts him up onto shore and basically says, "What the fuck were you doing?" Mm-hmm. And it's funny. It alludes to another scene once again. We were talking about this last episode with Robert Baratheon saying, "This Tully boy came charging at me, wanted to win the war in one stroke." And Jaime's actual quote was, "What were you doing? I was winning the war." Mm-hmm. Or trying to win the war.
But you could tell with how Nikolai Coster-Waldau played that. I like how he said that because it felt like he really hasn't got anything to fight for now, and he genuinely does want to be the honourable guy. People still keep calling him Kingslayer and everything like that, but you can tell that even then, he was doing that with the best intentions. He wanted to save as many people as possible. He doesn't like to see people die. And he's just witnessed a hell of a lot of people die around him. And if he could have ended it in that one go, then he would willingly give his life to do it. Just looking at
one of my favorites. Yeah. Oh no, you go first.
I was just saying, I'm just looking at some of the comments that we've had so far. A lot of people really hated how the episode began in terms of the transition, like how you did see Jaime sinking, and then all of a sudden it was like maybe if they'd have had a shot of Bronn diving into the water and dragging him up a little bit, that would have been a better way to open it because it would smooth the transition out. It did feel like a bit had been cut out. Obviously, you could piece the two scenes together, but he did swim a hell of a long way with Jaime with armor
With
on.
armor.
And it didn't even look like the current was that fast in the water, like the river could have taken them halfway down. It did look very still and calm, that he would have actually had to have swam that distance with a semi-unconscious Jaime on his back.
Yeah, I was going to allude back to one of my favorite scenes beside Chaos as a Ladder and the Tyrion court case scene. It's Jaime speaking to Brienne about killing the Mad King in the spa bath after having his hand chopped off. And that is probably the first scene that I think anyone connected properly with Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time he really opened up to anyone, and that scene was brilliantly acted by both the actors in there. That this character has come so far, has seen so much, and doesn't know which side to be on anymore. I think those words have really stuck with him from Elena. Those words have stuck with him from literally everyone who's spoken to him, besides Cersei. And him trying to win the war. I made a joke to my dad about it at the time whilst we were watching the show, but I think it might actually be true. I think he would rather face running at a dragon than going back to Cersei and telling her that she can't win the war.
Yeah.
I think he would rather take the easy way out and get burnt alive or eaten alive or even killing Dany than like having to go back and actually face Cersei face to face and tell her, you cannot win this war. I cannot be beside you this time.
Well, we've definitely seen their relationship be shaken to its core pretty much in this one, or at least see the cracks appear in it already. And with how things go with Cersei in this episode, and we'll get to it in a minute, and people can comment on what their take on it is. I think it's all going to come to a head. If it doesn't come to a head this series, it's definitely going to be the next one. But they are setting some big things up with Cersei. We may as well just skip to it now. One thing I do want to mention is, though, that the Elena thing, like Cersei immediately dismisses it. Like she does not want to believe it. She's so sort of streamlined into her own vision and her way of thinking that she doesn't trust Jaime in that moment. She's saying that, Elena would have said anything to throw you off. Cersei wants Jaime at her level. She always has. They've always been on an equal playing field. And now his allegiances haven't changed, but his perception to things has changed. With alliances with Brienne, for example, his time as a prisoner, it's all had a knock-on effect with him. He has seen the carnage that a dragon can bring. Cersei hasn't, and that's shaken him. It's almost like he's arrived at King's Landing with severe PTSD as to what he's just witnessed. And Cersei has now gone completely off the rails, but she wants him on her level. So maybe this is her ploy, just going into it now that she announces that she's pregnant. Is that her way of manipulating him to try and get him back onto her side?
I think that, well, we all know Maggie the Frog's prophecy by now. We've spoken about it almost every time on the show since it happened. 3 heads, 3 golden crowns. They're all going to die. There won't be a 4th.
We know that Jaime is going to kill Cersei at some point. We know that that's going to happen.
Probably enough. Yeah. That's going to happen. That's going to happen very soon. It's going to happen before Cersei gives birth. So Cersei now has a date on her head. We knew it was going to be short, but I know it's a long-range date of 9 months, but that is now on her head.
Well, I was going to say the whole
Cersei
9 months thing.
Survive.
If she is indeed pregnant, with how, going back to the teleporting thing again, with how long it should take people to traverse this wilderness of Westeros, if you want to be really nerdy about it, and of course I was really nerdy about it, you can actually go onto Google and it compares how big Westeros is in terms of our geography. And I think it puts it over the map of the US and it shows just how big it is. With how long it should take people to travel between 2 locations, she should have hit 9 months pregnancy within this episode. That should have happened. But I think if we're going with speculation, because we do speculate on these episodes, that I think Jaime is definitely going to be the one who kills Cersei. Whether it's going to be golden hand at the throat, I think she's definitely going to get strangled, and they've hinted at that in that they foreshadowed that with that map sequence from episode 1. And at this point, with what they've set up, I think the only catalyst that's going to make Jaime do that is when he discovers that she's lied about being pregnant. I think that's going to be the thing that tips him over the edge. That's my speculation anyway. I don't know if you've got the same. Or
I think it's going to be. I think at this present moment in time, it's building up, because obviously in this episode, Cersei creates her weird master plan type thing.
Hello.
Where she says, "Hello, George." Cersei creates this master plan where she says, if Tyrion wants to meet them, we're going to play it smart. As soon as we meet them, we're going to kill them, no matter what the threat is. And with that in mind, I think Jaime wouldn't let that happen. I don't think Jaime would let that happen even slightly. Jaime's too honourable for that.
Here's episode. I messaged this to Chris as soon as I found out he watched it because I was dying to get this off my chest. How I feel it's going to go. Like she said, what would father do? Tywin is an evil, brilliant bastard.
But Tywin always had morals in those kind of situations.
Wow, put it this way. I've been rewatching a lot of clips just across the seasons. You know, in your YouTube spams, what would you like? And it's on a Tywin fetish at the minute because I keep watching old clips. And they went back to the Jaime one where, you know, Tywin, the Targaryen, he sat King's Landing knowing he was going to lose. Tywin is relentless. He knows he will do anything to win. Red Wedding, I can't actually remember if he was okay with that. I guess he was to a degree. But Tywin would not lose. And Cersei has the I will not lose mentality, but in the situation at hand, Jaime's dumb. He knows that there will be a point when they do lose. And I feel now, going into episode 6, this is all tying together for episode 7. Episode 6, they will return with the White Walker body. This will be Jon Snow, the Hound, and Gendry. And this armistice getting set up, this all ties into all the whole Jaime stuff because I've been listening, but I can find a talk, obviously. I think Cersei will attempt to set a trap where she will try and have them all killed together. Gendry, the bastard son of Robert Baratheon, Daenerys, the threat, Jon Snow, the king in the north. I think she's going to try and take all three and her little brother. And I feel that when Jaime sees the evidence of the White Walker, and if she dismisses it, I feel that Jaime will kill her for the good of the world.
Right.
Because, and I think he will kill her, then kill himself, knowing that the White Walker is real and also that she is clearly not pregnant. The reason I kept the Hound alive is to get Clegane Bowl because she sets the mountain on them and the Hound's there. That's the best way they'll ever get to do it.
Yes, it will. And funnily enough, we don't know whether the Hound survives or not. But thinking back on this episode, thinking about what's going to happen next episode and seeing the promos from the very start of the series, there is one promo where you see the Hound. You know it's the Hound because it's the Hound's armor, it's the Hound's body shape, it's the Hound's hair. You don't see the Hound's face. He is back in King's Landing. Now, the real question here is he a White or is he the Hound?
I think he'll be the Hound.
Has he been killed up north and they've decided to cut their losses and take one of their own men back as a White?
The thing is, I can see it going two ways, because if we do have the Hound becoming a White, then you've essentially got two undead brothers fighting each other, which will be really cool and bring it to an equal playing field. But then again, we've got to think about Game of Thrones and the show writers, and this has moved away from the books now, and they're kind of, you can definitely see a change in the quality of writing since they were going off basing their show on the books, like the first 3 series, the first 4 series, and what they're kind of making up now, essentially. And the Hound is an incredibly popular character. Bronn is an incredibly popular character. And, you know, their dialogue and things like that, that's what the fans gravitate towards.
I don't think Bronn will survive. I really don't. I think he's probably going to die in the final fight.
I think if they were going to kill him off, they would have killed him off with Daenerys, with the dragon. Last episode, Spoilers of War, I talked about my thoughts on that and thinking that that's when he should have bowed out. I think they're going to keep him in for the long haul. This is a show, after all, and they're trying to keep fans interested. If they start killing off incredible fan favorites like that just yet for this series, I think that's going to be a problem for them going into season 7. That might happen season 7. I think we're going to see a lot of people die in the final season, but I think for the time being, we're going to see some go next episode. Me and George were kind of discussing who we think is going to go next episode, which we'll talk about.
We'll discuss it at the end when we talk about the Magnificent Seven, uniting the Seven, whatever we are calling it. But we need to still talk about Jaime and Cersei. So we did mention that Cersei says that she is up the duff, but also she knows about the meeting of Tyrion. Now, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit more with the Tyrion side of the story, which is later on in our review. But as far as the Jaime side of the story, Bronn sets up a meeting between Jaime and Tyrion kind of pitches his kind of parley, his armistice, and Jaime listens. And Jaime does even mention that, like, he's spoken to Bronn before and said, the next time I see you, I will wrap my hands around a foe and kill him. And yet, these brothers who maybe don't have as much love, they still have enough respect for each other to just kind of allow things to take place.
I think Qyburn let the meeting happen. I mean, that creep is everywhere.
I think Qyburn at the moment is playing the Littlefinger kind of style of games in the capital.
Qyburn is the father. I'm joking.
We're going to have some kind of Jerry Springer style show of Game of Thrones. Who's the father?
No.
Jerry of the House Springer.
The Scorpion is the father. We all know it.
Wait, who's the Scorpion again?
The weapon on the ballista.
I walked into that.
Wow.
I don't even know where to move on from that. Okay,
why do we always end on something incredibly awkward that makes us have to move on quickly? Let's do it. Let's move on.
Okay, people at home, just a question midstream. Write in the comments who the father is or who would be the funniest father and explain how it happened in this current situation.
Tywin Lannister would be the best father.
No, it's the dad's the Iron Bank.
I don't want Sherlock's brother. He's the father.
Mark Gatiss.
I don't want Suzanne to comment on this because she already talked about the mounting, wearing a particular helmet, and charging at Cersei in a certain place. And I don't want to go back to thoughts like that. So let's move on.
Okay. The next people in our line of fire is the Tarleys. Now, funnily enough, the Tarleys, who were a very minor set of characters up until very recently.
Speaking of dick jokes, you've got Dick on as well.
Yeah, we have Dick on. Dick on, Dick off. We have Randall Tarley refusing to bend the knee to Dany, which was kind of expected. He's that kind of character for it to take place. And then Dickon, a character who we don't really get much exposition from. He has the future of his house on his shoulders, and he says no. And he'd rather join in a family barbecue than kneel down and take in Dany as the one true queen.
Can I talk about this for a second with Dany?
Yeah.
Because I literally full on burst out laughing at the screen at this. So she starts off with a speech to the remaining Lannister forces, and she says, and I quote, "I am not here to destroy your cities, burn down your homes, murder you, and orphan your children." Did she watch the last 15 minutes?
No, hold on.
Of War?
Chris, she did not orphan Dickon. She burnt him alive at the same time.
There's still another Tarly called Sam too.
That's true.
I know, and I've written it down in the plan.
And he has a sword.
So after Dickon decides he wants to kind of like burn with his dad, Sam, now technically head of House Tarly, tries to convince the Citadel that the White Walkers are a real threat. Once again, we'll talk about this a bit later. It was very difficult to write this plan, okay? But basically, letters are sent out across the realm, and the Citadel receives one saying the White Walkers are a real threat. There's going to be an armistice. They're going to show them off to the world, and they're going to prove it, and they need people to go north to fight the good fight. Sam tries to convince. Jim Broadbent says, yeah, but no, kind of gives both sides of the story. I truly think he does believe Sam, but I don't think he's willing to give up his position of power to convince the other people in the Citadel. Which he would obviously lose if he did try to convince him in that way, shape, or form. At the very end, Sam running away from the Citadel because of this. He's tired of the studying. He's tired of everything like that. He just wants to fly. He wants to go with him. He takes little Sam. He takes Gilly, and they run off. Just before that, however, to finish off
before the Tarleys too. We had Jaden Smith Stark flying as a raven to the White Walkers.
No, George, no, George, no. You're doing the plan wrong.
I haven't got the plan. I literally came out of work.
Wait a sec. I will send you the plan because we're doing this in a very specific order. Otherwise, it just gets really confusing.
Okay, can I talk about because you gave a whole lot away there? Can I get some of my thoughts on that stuff?
Yeah, go backtrack,
Okay.
and then we're going to talk about Martel.
Okay, so I've already said about the whole Daenerys thing was hilarious and massively hypocritical, and clearly she didn't watch the end of last episode because she did murder a lot of Lannister forces, and she said, "I'm not Cersei. Cersei does this. Cersei kills people. I am not a murderer." Okay, I still can't stand Emilia Clarke, and I did think that, but I do like how they're showing her more of a mad queen now. I haven't seen general consensus. I still don't know if she has her hordes, that like her fan base of just people that just worship every single thing she does. But
She's
it seems
not that bad. I don't worship her, but she's not that bad.
I thought it was absolutely diabolical how
As
she
Tywin Lannister
dealt
once
with-
said, anyone that says I am the king is no king.
exactly.
And every episode she's running round like, I am the queen, bend the knee. Every single episode, it's become a meme. How
It's
often
the-
do Game of Thrones quotes become memes?
Bend the
Not very
knee.
often.
Bend the knee has become like the new "I am Daenerys Stormborn," like or
No,
Fire and
I
Blood.
saw a really funny one. I saw a really funny one about the episode 3, where it said, "I allow you to stay here, but I do not grant you the rank of leaving."
Teleporter.
It's a
Teleporter,
picture, yeah, it was a picture of Jon, and she said, "Bend the knee." Afterwards,
The best was like an angry fan base one of Daenerys, where it was like, you go girl, blah 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 blah, and then it's like a dragon burn, and it's like, this bitch is crazy, she's mad, and I think I sent it to you, Chris, and it's true. But
Yeah.
I've as a Daenerys, I'm not really a fan. I liked her until like the Harpy storyline, and then it was just crap and boring and a waste of time. She almost Arya Starked it, and we'll get to that later. But Daenerys is. Well, now we know Now we know she's not the legitimate Targaryen heir anyway. That goes to Jonathan.
she's not even technically the legitimate heir. That goes to Gendry.
She wasn't.
Always
She was
has
born
been.
after. She was born after Robert's Rebellion, wasn't she? I just want her to die.
She's a
Okay.
loose cannon at this stage. She's kind of like, well, I guess like Drogon is the equivalent of the
We're
Kraken
talking
in this
about the
series.
Tarleys. We're not talking about Daenerys.
Daenerys was in the scene. I need to talk about her because she was present in the scene, Tate. I can't help it that this plan is a little wonky this week. I'm sorry. I know you spent a lot of time on it, but it's a bit awkward to talk about. Okay, one thing I will say is though that it was kind of a sad moment when Randall Tarley and Dickon died, because don't get me wrong, Randall Tarley was an absolute prick of a character. You go back to season 6, that dinner scene with Sam. We love Sam. We love Gilly. We liked seeing them together, and it was horrible seeing Randall be an absolute prick to him. But nonetheless, like Tywin kind of was, not so much towards the end, but he was an honorable man. Like, he had principles. He did pick allegiances. He was, he stuck by it till the end, and that's an admirable quality. It didn't get him out of the fact that he was roasted alive by Drogon, but I did think I knew his days were numbered. I knew he wasn't going to bend the knee or anything like that, but I thought it was a good send-off. As any, very brutal, but I like how they're making Daenerys seem like a character
lie.
controlled.
I know we're going to be talking about Daenerys later on in the review, but one simple line: I agree with what Daenerys did. It was the right thing to do. We are now moving on. Okay, so the final bit about the Tarleys was a book nod, a TV show nod. I don't even know what to call it anymore. I think Chris said it best by saying it's fan service. We've got Gilly reading the books, and it was a throwaway line, complete throwaway line, where Sam didn't even notice, and it was Rhaegal having a secret wedding in Dorne, having an annulment with his previous wife, which was Illyria Martell. Suddenly, you have R plus L equals J, Rhaegal versus Lyanna equals Jon. Basically, Jon's parentage is being spelled out before us, and it's a quick nod to the people watching at home. It's like Gilly may as well just looked at the camera and just kind of winked at us.
Everyone forgets when Jaden Smith went in his flashback to the tower last year. She whispers something to Ned, and we never hear the whisper. And
people have been able to kind of mouth it out, but it looks like
it's not true.
He says Jonaris or something like that.
I made that up in a group chat.
Yeah,
I said
that's why I think she would have told. I think she would have told Ned that he's a Targaryen, as in outright like the heir to the throne. And And because obviously we all know how Robert is with the Targaryens, but also you've got to think that if they married, then she might have actually fallen in love with him. I haven't read the books, but I know the theories well. But could you imagine if Robert had found out that she had fallen in love with Targaryen as well? Not just the fact that she would have had a bastard kid with one and been raped. If she'd have fallen in love with one, that would have even maybe turned Robert on the Starks too. You don't know.
Yeah.
But that's going to be very interesting. See how this, because it's been teased so many years, and the problem is now we're getting to the end of Game of Thrones. It is becoming slightly more predictable than previous seasons because we know, okay, you've got to close the storylines soon. When you're closing storylines,
we don't know what storylines. We don't know what
true.
storylines are going to be left open-ended for the several spin-off shows they have going to be taking place.
It's obvious we're going to get Robert's Rebellion. That's the only common sense.
We're going to get Robert's Rebellion, Duncan Egg, and then there's like 3 others which we don't have a clue about. Maybe it's going to be Bronze Adventures whilst he was a sellsword before it took place. That would be funny.
What about Daenerys and the slaves? Do we not want a spin-off show for everyone's favourite Mad Queen?
Robert's Rebellion would be amazing, by the way.
It would be.
Is that a story that needs to be told, though? Because we know how it ends.
It doesn't need to be told.
Scene.
It doesn't.
It just
no,
be
but
phenomenal
to see it across maybe 2 seasons, just the entire thing, and if George R. R. Mann wants to add any more mythology to it, visually it would be absolutely stunning. Just seeing the Mad King burning people alive, young Jaime. I think it'd be like the Star Wars prequels, but maybe better. The hype that they would get. I mean, I know you love Lord of the Rings, Chris, but The Hobbit never had the hype. I know we weren't born in 99, but The Hobbit's never had the hype the Star Wars prequels would have had coming out. And I feel that this would be the biggest prequel ever told that's not Star Wars. And I feel that it's got the right amount of detail to be at least between 1 and 2 seasons max, as long as they don't milk that. But I just love to see it done properly, and it'd give you so much more going into Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, they just want to cash in at this point, don't they? As soon as Game of Thrones ends, HBO are going to want to get on a spin-off as quickly as possible so they can cash in on it. The last thing I'll say about the Sam stuff, I saw that Sheila was saying it was very frustrating that Sam wasn't listening to Gilly in that moment. The writing in that moment did feel very simplistic, like just a very, as Tate said, like wink, wink, nudge, nudge moment, to the point where you go to like earlier series where you had more episodes, but it felt slower. It felt like things were earned a lot more and things didn't feel as cliched as that. It feels like in season 7, it's elements of season 6 and 5, but definitely with this one where it feels like it's been truncated down, you are getting more moments like that. I don't know if there's a subtler way they could have done it. Did we need it at all? I don't know. I think it was because it was paired pretty much directly after with the Jon scene with Drogon, and it felt a little bit on the nose. Going back to Lord of the Rings, though, like with Sam trying to convince the old curmudgeonly people to go to war, it reminded me of the Entmoot from the Two Towers, where Merry and Pippin are trying to convince the Ents to go to war, and they're just sitting amongst themselves, just chatting about shit and arguing about nonsensical stuff. But yeah, I didn't expect Sam to break away from Old Town though this quickly. I did expect him to stay there, get his maester chain, but still influence the events that are to come from Old Town. But, he's taking the initiative. He is going on his merry travels again. So that pretty much means that next episode, he's going to be at whichever destination he's heading to.
He's probably going to be north of the wall. He's going to save the entire group. He's going to be basically like the Superman of the entire group. He's going to come in with the sword. He's going to be like, oh, yeah, whilst I was in the Citadel, I secretly trained with the Faceless Men. And he's going to have the best, skills and shit like that. He may even ride a dragon in, who knows? It's just gonna be Sam to the rescue. Everyone's gonna be cheering. Even the White Walkers are gonna be I'm gonna give him some respect for that. Anyway, moving on to the next part. The next pairing on our merry travels is Tyrion and Davos. They spend a little bit of time with each other in this episode. There is a third person who is part of this group, but I just kind of linked Tyrion and Davos together. Tyrion has a very interesting role in this episode he has been for the last few episodes now, being almost on the wrong side of Dany. Supporting her, knowing that she is probably the best person to rule, and yet being in a horrible situation where he's disagreeing with what she's doing. And as Hand of the King, it's becoming a bit of a problem, I'd say. And even even Varys has a conversation with him saying, like, when he was stood there in the council of King Aerys and he was burning people alive, Varys kept on saying to himself, "It's not my fault. I'm not the one doing it." And Varys even starts drinking at this stage, which I don't think we've seen throughout the entire series.
I liked
So
his
you
line
can show
about the
this-
parchment as well. That was a funny little line. I do
Gendry.
like Tyrion and Varys's back and forth. Yeah, I think I don't know if Tyrion's going to defect, but we're definitely seeing his doubts now, and even Varys's doubts as well. And he swore fealty to her earlier in this season, but he's saying you need to keep her under control now. She's becoming a bit wild. She's like a mad dog off the chain. You need to rein her back in. And one of my favorite shots in this episode was at the very beginning of the episode with Tyrion, where he's walking across the battlefield at like the ash of all the Lannister forces. And even there, like, you know, he might not like the Lannisters or anything. Like, he loves his brother. He doesn't like his sister, but you can tell he still has respect for his family's army. Like we saw that in Blackwater, where he led his troops into battle. And to see them all dead there, I think this is all having an effect on him. Whether this is just going to influence some kind of parlay between the Lannisters, which is being set up with this episode, or maybe we'll see Tyrion defect back to the Lannisters after Cersei's killed. Who knows? But we've been discussing about who's going to ride a dragon as well. And George, you think that Tyrion is probably going to be one to ride a dragon in this?
I think he was just searching the ash for confirmation that... what's his name? Ed Sheeran's.
Jamie made
no,
it.
that Ed Sheeran's dead. Just like some loose ginger hairs on the floor would have been enough, and then Tyrion would have been smiling. You know that dance for the outtake from season 4? That'd have been him walking up to Daenerys after Sheeran's dead confirmation.
I feel like all you need to see there is like a guitar on the floor with like an Ed Sheeran sticker on it. It's slightly charred off the edge, and he's just like kind of... Tyrion just kind of looks directly at the camera, both thumbs up, smiling and nodding. We need a lot of winking and nodding at the cameras from this episode, to be honest. So there is a discussion between Tyrion, Davos, and Daenerys, and all the people on Daenerys' council about going to King's Landing to negotiate this armistice, bringing a white down to King's Landing to prove to them that the threat is real. They can discuss who's the ruler of the realm once the realm is saved, basically. Putting aside their differences, and the only person who can really do that is Tyrion negotiating with Jaime. And I don't exactly know how they got in contact with Bronn. I'm sure he has ways of doing that. I'm sure that Varys probably got a message into the capital.
I'm gutted we didn't get Tyrion and Bronn's reuniting on screen. We should have been showed that, at least minimum. I didn't know if Chris was crying then, but
I think they'll be saving
that. It was a tear-jerking moment.
It was.
But this was a very kind of, for two characters who have loved each other throughout the books. Even in book 2, it's like all Tyrion talks about is the only person who ever loved him was Jaime in his family. The only other person who ever respected him inside his own family was Jaime. And I'm sure Tyrion... He must feel some form of guilt for killing his dad, but at the same time, he knows it was necessary for his survival. And you can see that when kind of Jaime starts talking about it, saying like, "You killed our father." He obviously knows that he's innocent from Joffrey now, and I'm sure that Jaime understands part of the situation. But at the same time, Jaime still can't get fully over it. I think he's accepting of it, because when he goes over to Cersei and kind of explains, "I saw Tyrion," this is what he had to say. I think he's a bit more accepting of it now that they've finally met back in person. But I didn't know what I wanted to expect. I didn't know whether I wanted them to hug. I didn't know whether I wanted them to just kind of stand there far apart in the room. I didn't know if I wanted Jaime to go up close to him or anything like that. But yeah. It was an interesting thing.
I mean, Jaime looked like his eyes were gonna pop out his head. Like, I don't think he knew what to do.
No, but I like that. It's kind of that uneasy thing when Sansa and Arya met each other last episode, which obviously is clearly being set up for future things down the line. But I thought it was a believable moment where they got there. I also like the framing of the scene as well. Like every time Tyrion spoke, he had the huge dragon skull behind him. Kind of an obvious signifier, though, that he's like sided with the Targaryens now. But I thought that was cool. and he always discussed how he liked dragons and everything like that in the crypt. So I thought it was nice how they brought that into it. I like the meeting. I think we're definitely going to see these two characters again, maybe during the armistice when they're all sharing in the hall together.
I want to point out that Jaime has a Valyrian steel sword.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe after the Hound, who is now a White Walker, kills the Mountain, Jaime swoops in and cleans him up with his sword.
I don't think they're going to do that. With
No, the Hound would be the most stupid White Walker change. If they were going to bring someone back as a White Walker, it'd be Hodor. But they never
would bring back Benjen.
I hope he should just stay north of the wall.
Do you reckon Benjen will be seen in next episode when the Seven unite?
Didn't he say he can't go south of the wall? Isn't that what he said?
Not south of the wall; they're north of the wall.
Yeah, but if you want to take him south of the wall to King's Landing, then I don't think we'll see him.
What I'm saying is, do you think Benjen is going to be part of the battle? Do you think Benjen's going to come in and help them slightly?
I think he might. It's the obvious place to place him, and I don't want to see them just drop his character now that was one of the biggest mysteries of the entire series, even the books as well. I mean, that still hasn't been resolved in the books yet. And then to just use him for that one little quick thing to get Bran from A to B and then to get him out of there. I'd like to see him come back next episode. One thing I want to know is how do they plan on capturing like a White and transporting it? Like, are they going to take like a big wooden box with them and kind of lure it in and like close the lid and then drag it? Like, what are they going to do? They're going to hog tie it, whack it on the back of a horse. I don't know how you go about capturing a White.
Well, they're just going to teleport it, aren't they?
Pokeball.
Pokeball. I was like, Game of Thrones Go. Like, they just throw a Pokeball at it on an app.
You know that they'll probably make that. And like, you can just choose your house, and if you get House Targaryen, you can just like catch all the slaves and go, "You are a slave no more."
So it's different for Pokemon Go. You're not capturing things; you're releasing things. You're releasing everything back into.
Oh no! See, at Lannister, you'd capture the slave. No, you wouldn't. The rich people.
You just pay off your debts. That's all you do.
And then House Stark, you just kind of stay up the northern hemisphere.
You get given a direwolf for the start, but it dies halfway through.
Oh.
Then you die.
Is it like
you have to play like 7 years to get your dragon full size.
Yes.
Is it like a Tamagotchi? Like you have to like feed it every day, and if you go on holiday or something, you forget to take it, you just come back and you.
And if your friend steals it, you get the immortal "Where are my dragons" line.
Anyway, okay, moving on. So a character who has been on the SS Abandoned plotline, in fact, he invented it. He is the captain of the SS Abandoned plotline. We have the return of the stag known as Gendry Baratheon. He has returned, the true heir to the throne. My God, we have been waiting for this for so long. And finally, he is back on the screen. And I'm not going to lie, but I like how his character has developed in the time off stream. I really do.
This was hilarious because I watched these episodes with my parents, and like he showed back up, and I did like the whole like oh, Gendry's back, and my mum was like, "Who's that? Like, what's his character?" I forgot everything.
Look at them, just are you serious?
To be fair, when was it? I think it was series 3, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's been a fairly long while since we've seen him, and I just Liam Cunningham's been fantastic in this series so far as Davos. Like just the opening with a line that every fan's had, like Gendry. I thought you were still rowing. Like I love that. I love shit like that.
The Onion Knight they call him, don't they?
Yes. Yeah. He's brilliant. But seriously, it's everything down to his look. He's got a hammer which he fights with, just like his father. He wears the Baratheon colors. It's the fact that he's prepared to go off. He has the same kind of speech that his father did. Not only that, but on the hammer there is a stag, if you look closely. So it's not like he's hiding it anymore. To the point where when he meets up with Jon, he actually just says, "Hi there, my name's Gendry Baratheon. I am the true heir to the throne." And Jon's like, "Oh shit, okay, whatever." Like, I don't really care about.
One thing I want to know is how much time has actually passed since Gendry escaped in terms of the show. Like, I know it's been years for us, but there was a line that I think Sansa mentions to Arya or vice versa, saying that we've been apart for years. And I know it's years in terms of the series, but when you watch the show in terms of the narrative, I didn't think it was that long. I didn't think it stretched on for that long. I thought it was over, maybe a year, for example, but like a consecutive series of months.
I think Sansa had been captured by Ramsay for at least 6 months. Plus.
Okay. So I just wondered how long Gendry had actually been away in terms of the narrative of the show. But who knows?
I think
Tommen
was in power. I think Tommen was probably in power for just over half a year.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the whole High Sparrow uprising taking place in that time. I think it would have taken half a year to a year for that to happen.
Mm. One thing I like about Gendry as well, you talked about like him having the warhammer that not exactly the same warhammer, but he's using a similar weapon as to what his dad did. I like that they're showing that slow, uneasy alliance between Baratheon and Stark again, just like, Ned and Robert back in the day.
Does that mean that they're going to have to team up to take down Daenerys?
Maybe, possibly. I don't think so, because they're clearly setting up that whole romance thing with Jon and Dany, unfortunately. Try as I might to stop them from doing it.
There is a second Mad Queen currently in office.
Mm-hmm. I'd say slightly
so
less,
maybe that is
less of a Mad Queen than Daenerys.
Are you kidding me? I will make sure that you watch your kid turn to dust. I'm pretty sure that falls into the category of your bonkers. But anyway, moving on to the next part. We have basically Davos giving 2 Lannister soldiers crabs, which Chris already just read as one of the lines.
I just read that. Yeah.
Don't worry, I put loads of puns into the thing for us to read through anyway. But yeah, basically this fermented crab, gives you an Ardon for a good old time after you think you can't go any further. He gives these 2 Lannister soldiers the crab, they go on their merry way, and they bump into Tyrion. And then Gendry comes in with hammer time to save the day.
I just love the fact we actually have another weapon that's not as bloody sword and a knife. Like, the second you get the hammer, like, we go.
What about Euron's axe?
Well, we haven't seen enough of it yet. Like, it was dark, it was night. I want to see him bright of day, just, going for it. I mean, the Pirate King will return. I have a special Euron Greyjoy top that's actually arrived now, but I'm holding off wearing it because, he didn't come back again this week. Whether he's still starving...
I don't think we'll see him until week 7.
No, we won't.
Going back to Gendry really quickly, this was something Sheila messaged me with, saying that do we think that Gendry will eventually meet up with Arya again, and will he be the one to kind of pull her back to normality or some semblance of normality? Because she met with Hot Pie, it didn't work there. Will Gendry be the one to bring her back?
I think Gendry will be the one. I think Arya, as far as tomboys are concerned, she doesn't really have crushes on people.
Fan theory.
Out of everyone, it was always him.
Fan theory just came to my head. Robert Baratheon always wanted to unite House Baratheon and House Stark. They were going to do it via Joffrey and Sansa. That failed. What if you have Arya Baratheon?
I'm down.
I think that might be.
I'm down.
I think that might
came
be
as 30 seconds ago. That's a fan theory that I have not seen online yet. Am I the origin of this fan theory?
No, that's been going around for a while now.
Oh, that's ruined my day then, hasn't it?
Sorry,
George. I didn't know that was a thing. I haven't seen season 2.
It's basically, I only really liking one person ever, and her saying, "I don't want to be a lady in a castle." If Gendry ever did meet back up with Arya, it was always going to be the case of, I think they have a mutual attraction for each other. I think that is probably going to be taking place.
The thing is, it looks like he's aged now, and she hasn't. Yeah, when he showed his haircut, I was like, Christ, it's like one of the Fast and Furious cast members when they just turn around, they're like suddenly bald, and I was like, what has happened to him? Like,
it's going to be like the awkward Padme from episode 1 with Jake Lloyd. You kind of accept it, but you're also like, this is really creepy. This shouldn't be a thing right now. But see how it goes.
Yes. No. I subscribe to, we'll call it George theory, even though it isn't. That I think Gendry and Arya will probably end up, maybe not controlling a house or ruling the kingdom, but they're going to end up together, maybe running away with each other.
Is he able to become an outright Baratheon? Because when Ramsay was made a Bolton, that was via
I think Jon will probably, as soon as he survives the sack, I think Jon will legitimize him. Either Jon or Daenerys will.
Oh, Daenerys won't. He's a Baratheon.
Yeah. They didn't really have that conversation, did they?
Well, no. Well, that's why Sir Davos was telling him, tell yourself.
Keep it on the down low.
He's like, ha! I'm a bastard like you, my friend. That's jumping ahead. Yeah. Hello.
But anyway, to finish off the Tyrion and Davos scenes, we have what's it called? Tyrion giving Jorah the coin that he was used to be sold with. It's a nice touching moment, but I think Series 5 was pretty. It's one of the worst series of Game of Thrones, and any touch.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember anything from season 5. I'm not joking.
The only thing I remember was Jorah actually getting the grayscale. That was the only big moment.
Was
really.
He touched on the button?
Yeah, the dance with dragons wasn't even that big of a moment, but it was the dragon flying overhead whilst they went through Valyria, which really stuck with me from that series. Nothing else really stuck with me.
I mean, I thought Marcella died in season 6, but apparently season 5.
Oh, that was series 5? Oh, I thought it was series.
Apparently so.
End of series 5, and then her body comes back season 6.
Forgettable kind of series. So any touching moment that came from that series gets washed away, which is sad. But anyway, to finish it off, Gendry joins the 7.
Can we talk
Moving
about
on
my
to
favorite character now? Well, not my. Well, one
talk
of my
about Jorah the Explorer. I'm going to start off with something I've written down here for everyone to love. Khal Drogo is dead. Dany has sent Daario away to look after the Bay of Dragons. We have Jorah being sent. I command you to go be cured. Such a lovely, touching moment. And he's done it. Do you know what? Against all odds, with this fatal disease, he is being cured. He's finally out of the friend zone. He has his chance. He can now go back to Dany after the betrayal, the redemption, the love that he's always had for her. Everything is coming together right now. And when he goes back to embrace Dany in his arms, she introduces him to his her new boyfriend in the shape of Jon Snow. Yeah. Which I thought was one of the most devastating moments, most casually devastating moments in the series.
He replaced his dad in the Night's Watch, and he's replaced him to Dany.
You can see him lock eyes with Jon Snow for one scene, and just like the look of sheer disappointment and like jealousy in his eyes. He's
taken his sword. He's taken his sword and his woman.
She may as well have greeted him. She may as well have greeted him with a handshake when he showed back up, just to demoralize him even more.
I think I suggest this to Chris. I don't know if I've suggested it to George or the people watching at home, but there is a series called Chris Watches Game of Thrones. Chris spelled Chrys, watches Game of Thrones on Reddit, and he goes through and distills the episode and puts on hilarious quotes. I think the one from this episode was. As Dany goes in to hug Jorah, he says, "Oh, Jorah Bear, you're back. Thank you so much for coming back. This is my new boyfriend." And Jon's just like, "So you're the Mormon," which I thought was hilarious. But I feel like it could have been a very awkward conversation.
Did he mention? He didn't mention Sam either, did he?
He didn't. How did you heal yourself? Some dude named Sam Tarly, healed me. Jon goes, "That's my best friend." Dany goes, "I just burnt his family to a crisp." Would have been a very interesting interaction to go with, but instead
I can't wait for Sam to find out his family's dead. I can just imagine being, "Oh no, Jon!" Like he does that really weird panic
no,
yeah,
Jon.
He does that really weird thing, and I can't wait for him to find out that his family's all dead. He'll return to his mom, and it'll just be them. He probably will return to his mom as well.
He's now head of the house. He is now head of House Tarly, and he's got a feck-off great big Valyrian sword to go with it. In the shape of hearts.
If he can cure Dragonstone, then he should be a rich man. But technically, he's got to go back to the wall, right? Because he left in his jacket.
So he'll show up and they'll be like, "Where's your chain?" And he'll be like, about that. I don't have one, so I've got to go back to Old Town and
Where's your
get my
chain?
mace's
Fuck
chain.
the chains.
He might do a Chris Pratt.
Fuck
He
the
might
chains.
come back.
I've got a sword.
He might do a Chris Pratt. Come back in the next season, like shredded with a 6-pack and a Valerian steel sword.
What, and Gilly just looks completely buffed out.
If you watch Detroit, Gilly's in Detroit, and it took me an hour to realize who it was, and I literally had. I couldn't even describe the connection in my face. Like when I was like, "Shit, it's Gilly."
When
I
I
just
first saw her on Game of Thrones, it took me about 4 episodes to realize that she was from Skins, and I love Skins, and I was just like, it was just one of those moments. I was watching the episodes, like, you've been in something.
Gendry's in Skins.
Yeah, Gendry is also in Skins. I want to see a reunion. That would be brilliant. Skins has an amazing cast, by the way. They got Dev Patel. What's his face? Person who plays Beast in the new X-Men series.
They got that the one from Pirates of the Caribbean, that Kyla Secura, or whatever it is.
Yeah. They did a good cast of that show, but anyway. So we have done with Jorah the Friend Zone. Oh no, wait. He has joined the Seven. He'll be fighting on
Unite the Seven, the real Justice League. The best Justice League film this year is coming out on Sunday for 1 hour special on HBO.
It's an hour and it's longer than an hour, I believe. Next episode. Wait,
it's an hour and 10 minutes.
70 minutes without adverts. Beautiful.
And then episode 7 is 80 minutes, I think.
Oh no! I've got work like 2 hours after.
Worth it for Game
No,
of Thrones,
I'm saying. I'm pretty sure that it was kind of everyone on the podcast agreed we're going to be watching the final episode and then immediately doing the review afterwards. So we're going to probably stay up for that. Backing out now.
No, Tate, didn't you get the memo? George has work at 5 in the morning, so we'll be doing it as soon as he's back from work. So it'll be like 3 p.m. the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, why? So no, you can't make us wait that long. No, I will not allow it.
Literally, I've got an alarm. I know this is off topic, but I have an alarm set for. I would go to bed like 10. An alarm set for 1:50 a.m. Watch Game of Thrones from 2 to 3:30. Then shower, run to work, come home at 2 p.m. with like 2 hours sleep and talk about Game of Thrones. Is it going to be like Rogue One turned up to 11?
Anyway, let's move on to Danny and John. Danny says, bend the knee or die. Danny then says Dracarys immediately afterwards. Funnily enough, that tactic works. Everyone does bend the knee afterwards, but she doesn't wipe out a house, but she wipes out the 2 in line from a house, which is pretty mad queenie. But I'm not going to lie. If she says, I will not burn you today, after saying, I'm going to burn you, those Lannister soldiers, they might start standing up and then she has to burn everyone. I think that her entire part of that was based on fear. They've seen the dragon once. There was a couple of them who still stood up after the dragon roared at the crowd, and it still wasn't enough. She tried using fear tactics. It didn't work, obviously. Well, technically it did work, and she only had to kill 2 people instead of having to kill an entire flock of people. So as far as leadership goes, killing 2 people and saving the amount of lives who are now working for you, it's good. I don't mind Danny. I think that she gets way too much flack than she deserves.
Oh, no.
I know she's not the best. She's not the best actress on the show, and I know it didn't work out. It didn't work out.
They are my children. Was that the quote this week, or was it "I'm their mother"?
I'm their mother. Yeah.
Woman, they're eggs.
I don't think Emilia Clarke gets half of the hate that she needs, to be honest, for her portrayal of Daenerys Stormborn, first of her name, breaker of chains, titles. And I hate this. It's so fan-fictiony. It's literally like some, sappy fangirl or fanboy, I guess, need to keep the genders equal with this, has got a hold of the script and just said, I like
Daenerys as a man and see how that goes down.
Yeah, let's do it, It's the typical trend now. Let's gender flip everything. But no, it's just. I'm not gonna lie,
but and I have to ask the question: is there more love between Tormund and Jon than Jon and Daenerys? Is that more likely to happen?
There's more love between Tormund and Bren than anyone else.
He asked for her again. Yeah, he did ask.
I'm sorry, but when he asked her, you know what? Bren versus White Walkers would have actually been
I think I'm not going to lie.
Chrome armor too.
I think Jon would totally wingman Tormund to Brienne if he survives the next episode.
I love how
I
people in
think
the
that would be a
comments are
thing.
saying, "Here we go!" Like they were prepared for me to go on another soapbox hatred on Emilia Clarke. I probably won't
go back to our Terminator Genesis review. That was an absolute classic. That was like the early days.
Yeah,
I went mental about Jai Courtney.
yeah, and I mean, look at him now. Like he's not all that bad now.
Well, he's still bad.
Just...
He stood out from the worst in Suicide Squad.
He was the best part of Suicide Squad.
It's not an achievement, though, is it?
No, it isn't.
Whereas
Speaking of
Emilia
Suicide
Clarke
Squad,
remained consistently shit.
There's like the most like evil. I was gonna say a word worse than evil. There's a Suicide Squad poster out, and it's great for this, except when they've like first up the Night King as Jared Leto's Joker, and a part of me died.
Does that mean next episode we're going to see the Night King say "honker honker" and our lives will be complete?
Well, he might have a cane now.
He'll have the grills.
And he might have that one with long hair next to him. It's not actually Gandalf as a zombie. It's actually like his Harley Quinn.
Yeah, and he'll have like a coal tattoo on his forehead just to, probably out for everyone.
It'll be like walking.
So yeah, going back to
would like
Danny
to pitch in very quickly.
Okay.
Going back to Danny bending the knee, before you go with your hate rant, your hate speech,
I actually wasn't going with that, but okay.
I want to just lay down the situation that Danny has got herself in. She is a foreign invader. It's going to be very difficult to win over the people. I think by following Jon's advice, she has put herself in a decent enough position. It's difficult for Tyrion as well as an advisor, because obviously he sees both sides of the battle, being previously on the other side. So yeah, I feel like as far as the character is concerned, she is put into difficult situations, and I mean, she's just acting out of best interest, whether that be for the better or for the worse. I think it was last episode, they said in the behind the scenes, and I feel like it made Danny feel more like a villain in this sense, that they filmed it from the Lannister perspective. From the start of the series, even with the Ed Sheeran scene, they wanted to make the Lannister soldiers feel like humans. They wanted to make them feel more like characters.
More like musicians.
And they had that scene put in place to humanize the characters. I know it was a terrible cameo, but remove Ed Sheeran from that scene and it's humanizing Lannister soldiers. That's all that scene is. And I feel like a lot of the series has been pointed towards, they're not all monsters. Maybe it's just the people at the top, which hadn't really been focused on previously too much in Game of Thrones. So I feel like at this stage, both sides are in very difficult positions. And it's truly your opinions on the characters are based on how they film it. Whereas if you take this episode as a whole, I would probably do exactly the same as what Danny did. I would burn the Tarleys. Look, you've given them their choice. You've given them their chance.
Wasn't much of a choice, was it? Really?
Refusing,
like, it's not out of like loyalty or honor, like Missandei was talking about. It was like, join me, or you're going to be fucking burnt alive immediately now.
No, it was a look. I'm not the enemy here. Join me, otherwise you are going to become my enemies. And just like Cersei, I will rid you of this country. And only Randall was the one who was picked out. She wasn't going to go and kill Dickon. Dickon stood out for himself. It was his own choice. And that was a very stupid decision by Dickon. And I think Randall even mentions it. He just says, "You idiot. What are you doing?"
Here's another thing. How did Drogon know to only burn the two of them? Yes, they walked forward. But surely the word Dracarys, or whatever, just an entire Lannister. Does Drogon know what bend the knee means? Like, because they all bent their knees, because he didn't burn them.
Hold on. The first time that Danny says Dracarys, it only burns one person. The person who's holding the chain. The second time Danny says Dracarys is in the House of the Undying, or is that the first time? I can't remember. But the dragons only attack one person.
But then
Every
last
time
week,
she has
they
said
attacked everyone.
every time she has said Dracarys, it has done exactly what she has wanted to do.
Or the writers have wanted
Basically.
to. Does she have Jedi mind tricks? Like, could she just control him?
Maybe she's got some kind of like Na'vi like hair plug thing that she plugs into Drogon, and then like the two share like a spiritual connection. I don't know. Wow,
Yeah,
I just used an Avatar reference. That wasn't dated from 2009 at all, was it? The last thing I'll say on the Daenerys and Jon stuff, I did like the scene where there's going to be no way I can say this without it sounding like an innuendo, where Jon pets Daenerys' scaly dragon. I did think that was a great scene. The effects budget on this series must be absolutely astronomical because the effects are incredible. Like, granted, you had that massive action scene, and maybe you would see a dip in quality here and there where they're trying to like cut costs or something like that. But honestly, no, like you see that dragon up close and it's incredible.
But we're not seeing any dialogues.
I'm not going to talk about the dragons. I'm not going to talk about the dragons.
Where's
I'm going
Ghost?
to talk about Daenerys, actually.
Again.
Yes, I am. They changed her makeup in this scene.
Yeah, I noticed it. Did she get a tan from all the heat? I sat there thinking, like, literally, what's going on?
No, she had a warmer glow about her. She had like
she's been sitting
some
on dragon
foundation put on to make her. No, I think it would made her look more homely and more loving, I would say.
So therefore, Emilia Clarke
look...
can't get that across in her acting, so she requires makeup to make her face have a certain expression. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not going to lie, that is exactly what I'm saying. I'm on Team Danny, but this scene, it's not a bad thing, but they manipulated you using like makeup just to kind of make her seem like a more likable character.
It's like, Danny, we need you to frown, and she's going to have like a painted on sad face.
No, it was her cheeks were blushing. Her face was softer as far as acting was concerned, but it helped with having the makeup on to make her look like a softer character. And even when she's speaking to the dragons, and even after Jon's saying, like, they're beautiful, aren't they? And he says, I wouldn't describe them like that. He immediately backtracks. And even then, she doesn't look at him angrily. She just kind of just stares at him, like, quite blankly.
Like all
but you can definitely see
expressions in this show.
They are trying as hard as possible to get these two together. And in this scene alone, it worked. But I feel like in other scenes, it hasn't worked. The chemistry was alive in this scene. And maybe it was because of the makeup, maybe it was because of, I wouldn't even say wooden acting, I'd say the acting suited the scene better.
I feel that Game of Thrones will finish like Old Boy, where like he finds out that the person he just bedded was like actually his auntie. And that it's just gonna,
he's gonna cut out his tongue and
Well, George, I sent you the scene from Ace Ventura where he finds that Einhorn is Finkel. And he's burning his clothes and crying in the shower. Like, that would be the greatest ending to a fantasy series I think I'd ever see.
But Jon's so miserable, I don't think he'd care.
Yeah,
yeah. But anyway, finally, in the Jon and Danny stuff, Jon says,
two characters?
I'm making a super cool super team, and you can't stop me, Danny. Even after Jorah says, I will join the team. And Jon's like, I will join the team. And she's like, no, you can't, Jon. Jesus, no. Babe, come on. George just like, oh, fuck. Jorah knows he's lost this battle already. But we have that situation. We then have a heartfelt goodbye. We have a nice hug from Emilia Clarke and can't remember his name, Jorah. And I feel like this, it would have built up more if he was going to die, or maybe they're keeping it like that and he's going to die anyway. I think Jorah's redemption and Jorah coming back, I don't know if he's going to make it or not.
What if he comes back as a White Walker and Sam has to save him again?
That would be fun.
He'd have took Grayscale, a broken heart.
I feel like Jorah the Unfortunate is the name that's probably going to stick with him.
Lord Friendzone. I think Screen Junkies have that written down for Destiny now.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Sam learns how to cure Grayscale, then learns how to cure death itself.
I feel like that final scene with Jon and Danny was worth it. It wasn't like a hug or a kiss or anything like that. It was a mutual respect between King and Queen, and you can tell that they liked each other. You could tell that they both wanted to do something, and they didn't do anything.
Plot twist, Jon is in love with Gendry.
There's going to be someone out there that's totally cool with that. Sure.
Why not? I'm not against that.
Yeah, no, neither am I.
I mean, their two dads were just really good friends, and they just happened to have two bastard sons. And like I said earlier, why not you? Oh no, wait, he's a Targaryen. You can't really unite the Stark and Baratheon house with him, can you?
Can we talk about a relationship that I ship a lot more than that? Sansa and Littlefinger. Shall we move to the Winterfell stuff now?
Yes.
I believe we do. But first of all, we move to Bran. Bran warns everyone the Night King is inquiring about a holiday in the south, and that sense involved all of the events of the episode.
That's the worst joke you've done today.
I know it is. I think it wasn't as bad as Chris watches Game of Thrones, which did the Night's Watch. The Night's King has decided to move the plot south.
Yeah.
No, I like that more.
Yeah. Hey,
you know what was nice?
I don't
Actually
mind.
seeing a zombie. Considering that the transporter meme summed up the entire thoughts. I think it was a last week's one where it was, why are we moving? Because the plot doesn't require us to, or something like that.
I hate to bring up the map thing again, but like I brought up like one of where Old Town is in relation to was it King's Landing they're outside or Dragonstone? Yeah. Essentially, it's like the entire opposite side of the fucking map. And then you've got like the far north to Eastwatch, and they still haven't got to there. It's fucked. It's completely fucked.
Wait for the bullet train across the wall so that everyone just keeps popping up, like from Castle Black in the next episode as well.
Mm-hmm. Also, you know, like Bran, like the three-eyed raven said, you will fly, and now he's in ravens. I still think it's implied that he's going to get into a dragon at some point, because to me, like a flock of ravens isn't dramatic enough for saying that Bran will fly.
Wouldn't it be excellent if Bran tried to walk into a dragon and he just got burnt alive by himself?
Oh, that'd be great. I fucking love that. Bran's so boring this series, and I know he's playing a character. We've talked about this before, but he's so boring. Not even his family care about him anymore. Like, they probably wish that he died out of that tower.
What was great was when I watched the clip of episode 1, when Robert Baratheon goes up to Bran when he's standing. He goes, show us your muscle, boy, and he does that, and he's there like, you would make a, and I think that someone goes, you would make a fine warrior, and someone goes, correction, you will make a fine cripple. And I would just have loved it if Baratheon had said that. just rewatch the scene. It's just the way he says it.
Joe, I'm really surprised. You know how back in the I still think they still make them, but the parody movies that would come out, like the scary movies, the Meet the Spartans, epic movies and stuff like that. Surprised there has not been a Game of Thrones inspired one.
Don't give them ideas.
With a line like that.
Please,
like,
for the love of God.
You would make a perfect cripple, and he just swings his warhammer and takes his legs out.
Oh, that's my kind of humor. I'm not even going to admit that I actually like some of those terrible.
It was like Norbit. Did I send you a link to Norbit? It's like when Cersei tells Jaime she's
I'm a child.
Because it's like Norbit's like, I'm leaving you, Rasputin. She's just like, I'm a child. And that literally is Jaime and Cersei's relationship now.
We gonna be a fan.
It is.
Is all that Brad stuff we talked about? Let's get to like
that's all the Brad stuff. Yes.
The best stuff of this episode for me personally was the Sansa, Arya, Littlefinger stuff. I've said it at the beginning of the series. Their whole storyline is one that I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes, and this episode has definitely set this in a very interesting direction, which I think is even going to be continued in next episode. I thought it was just going to be the far north stuff, but maybe it's just going to be far north and Arya. I think they're the only two things it shows in the preview. This is what I mean. Like, I've got to believe that Littlefinger has a plan, and I was doubting it in the other episodes, and I feel so bad that I was doubting Littlefinger. Will never happen again. Everything's falling right into plan for him. Like, at first he was like, oh shit, like we've got superpowered Bran, who's like Professor X now. We've got murderous assassin Arya, and then we've got Sansa, who's kind of leading the whole north right now. Jean Grey, yeah. And it looked like he was vulnerable. It looked like he might be dying this series. Maybe that still will happen. I think he might just make it into season.
I think next episode he is gone. I think next episode he is gone.
No, episode 7.
I have seen the episode promo, and Arya makes kind of a speech, and you think it's probably to Sansa because it fits Sansa more. But I think it's said to Littlefinger. I think with this episode, it's very weird. I'd say the biggest part of the episode was the weird conversation that Arya had with Sansa, and a lot of people be talking about online. And I was very confused at the start. I was like, "Oh, I don't really get what's going on here." When I first watched it, I've had to rewatch it to kind of truly understand what is happening. But basically, Sansa holds court. The Glovers and I can't remember the other house.
Is it the Mandalys?
Mandalys, yes, have probably come forward. They've come forward and they've said, "Look, we trust more in you than we trust in Jon. He's gone south. He's gone to negotiate. We wouldn't trust the Southern ruler," which is basically what everyone's been kind of thinking. Well,
Jon will come back to Winterfell on a fucking dragon. That's exactly what will happen.
And I think he'll get Rhaegal, because obviously Rhaegal was his dad. It makes sense that Daenerys would give him that dragon, I think.
I have things to say about the next episode, but we will move on to that at the very end. And I think, this conversation between Arya and Sansa really stuck out for me in this episode. I don't even know how to describe it. Basically, Sansa says, she's become a brilliant politician. And I think we were discussing this in the other episodes, that Arya now has superpowers as a ninja type thing. Bran is Jaden Smith tree wizard. Sansa doesn't really have much, but she's gained
she's the politician.
Intrigue. She is the politician. And yeah, it's working more for her now, and she's kind of got that political mind working. But Arya just kind of straight up says they would listen to you if you chopped off their heads. And
that's the mistake Robb Stark made.
Do we think that Arya's reactions in this episode are a bit extreme? Because I was talking to you, George, about the fate of the scroll at the end of this, and how Arya's clearly going to have a go at Sansa, maybe even come close to killing her, and we know that won't happen. But, like, surely Sansa will just be like, look, I was forced... I was going to say forced at gunpoint. Guns don't exist in this universe. Forced to write this letter in front of Cersei. If I didn't like, I would have been killed. Surely Arya would understand that and know that that's a logical explanation. But things like that, where she's saying, like, you're disagreeing, you know, these are saying that they want Jon, like, that. Well, they want you as leader now, like, Jon's gone away. By the way, their allegiance has really defected very quickly, considering a few episodes they were cheering this guy as King of the North. Now he's gone away, and now they're all saying, like, yeah, fuck him, we want Sansa now. But then she's saying, like, chop off their heads to get them in line. Like, I know Arya's become more sociopathic now and just wants to murder everyone, but it seems like a bit of a stretch. Like, she doesn't feel like she's making much sense.
When was the last time she was in interaction with, you know, she wasn't on the run. She wasn't choosing life or death at every step she took, in that sense that it's the first time she's been in, like, not a hostile environment. I think that's the right word. It's not a hostile environment she's in now. And I feel that she needs to adapt to it, and she just can't.
It seemed to me like she was bringing too much of a past up. Like, we know that she had a very close relationship with Jon and not so much with Sansa. And that was even kind of brought up in their awkward reunion. What was it, 2 episodes ago, 1 episode ago? I can't remember when it was. It seems like she's bringing too much of that into it. Like, she was saying, like, you know, you didn't stick up for Jon. Like, that's something I would do because she really cares for Jon. Like, I thought Sansa's explanation saying, like, it's my job as Lady of the North to listen to problems that people have and take that on as, like, criticism. I thought that was good. I thought she was showing, like, proper diplomacy with that. But clearly Arya doesn't see eye to eye in that regard. She's a bit more of a...
It's not only that, but in the previous episode, you have Sansa talking about the grain in the north and kind of uniting everyone together. And if winter comes, they have to get the food up north, and there's going to be a food shortage. That's brilliant. That is amazing. Like, I was not expecting that from Sansa, like, as far as political intrigue. And yet in this episode, I think maybe Arya is wary that she doesn't want Sansa to fall into the same trap, or herself to fall into the same trap that Ned did. I think they are both aware that Ned was an idiot for being too honest and too...
He was too noble.
Too noble. And I think Arya is kind of thinking maybe a couple of steps ahead. Maybe she's saying her thoughts out loud because of that, and maybe she's saying, look, if they're truly not in line, you've just got to go for it. But yeah,
should we just get to the fun bits?
Okay. So finally, just before we get to the fun bit, we have Arya going and stalking Littlefinger, basically doing her whole ninja thing, kind of hiding the shadows.
Reminded me of a mission from Assassin's Creed.
Littlefinger has had dealings with Varys' birds and knows how to avoid little spies and stuff like that. In fact, to the point where he allows Arya to basically have a look at the letter. And for people who don't know what the letter is at home, it is the letter sent by Sansa at the very start of Series 2 towards Robb Stark saying, father is being killed for treason. Please come south, bend the knee, and you'll be pardoned. She was forced to write it, but it's just found by Arya to stoke the fire. And Littlefinger is fully aware of this. He's got everything completely planned out.
It was the shot. I sent Chris a brilliant meme, but it's role reversal for us. Of it's that recognizable face, I guess I can say, on the internet of that shocked guy. That's like that he's like smiling, like nodding his head when it's like Arya like reading the scroll. Then it cuts to Littlefinger like laughing like halfway around the door, and it cuts to their like shocked like no face. Whereas first it was the other way around. It was just when they cut, it was going to cut back to Littlefinger. Like he's not dumb. If they would have allowed this to happen, that he got annihilated by her, it would have been such like a downgrade from his character. Yeah. It would have been disgraceful. It's like what happened to Stannis. Like Stannis' death was ridiculous. Yet to me, Littlefinger's death would have been him being outwitted by Arya. He might still, but the way in which they did the whole door, they're just seeing his head poke around that corner, like the game is on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think it's Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, I think it still will. I think it's inevitable at this point that Arya will be the one who kills Littlefinger. But I really hope they do it. I really hope they do it in a good way. Like, don't really nerf his character down. Like it felt like that's what they'd done to his character, but now he's kind of rising back up. And I hope they keep that for a little while, because I would like to see Littlefinger around in the series a little bit longer. I'd like to see him make it to season 7, but I think with how the storyline's progressing, it would probably make sense to kill him and then usher in something different for the next one. That's it, isn't it? Have we got to talk about the 7?
Oh, here we go.
Yep.
So what everyone is probably going to be talking about going into the next episode, because this episode, as good as it was, people will not be talking about this episode. People will be talking about the next episode. People will be talking about the previous episode. We have the next episode uniting the 7, the Magnificent 7, whatever you want to call it. We have Tormund, the Wildling, Beric Dondarrion, the Lord of Light, with his flaming sword. We have Thoros of Myr, the Red Priest, and we have the Hound, all joining forces with Jon, the undead Targaryen Snow.
What are these fake titles for them?
And with their powers combined, they form Captain Planet, right?
Gendry, the Stag Baratheon,
the bastard,
and finally Jorah, friend-zoned explorer. We make together the 7. Okay, character predictions. Who is going to die? Who is going to survive?
The only survivors will be Jon, Gendry, and the Hound. Tormund will die. It will be upset, but 3 will return. Jon, Gendry, the Hound, all setting up episode 7 for Clegane Bowl and Cersei's confrontation with the King in the North, the rightful heir to the throne of that's obviously Gendry, and then the rightful usurper's throne, and then obviously.
So, which order do you reckon they're going to survive / die in?
Tormund.
We've seen Jorah.
Tormund will be the last to die.
You think
Tormund and Jorah will go together? Chris made a good point to me that goes that they wouldn't have let Jorah survive Grayscale for no reason. So maybe Jorah will survive, but
I think
Jorah will die with Tormund with the whole wildling crow thing.
Yeah. A lot of people are saying online that Jorah is probably going to survive this, and he's going to finish the series after all the wars are done as Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, like his father.
Maybe.
Can I make some predictions? I think Beric will be the first one to die, and he'll have that moment. Yeah, even so, I think he'll have that moment where he'll be like, finally, I can die. I've been waiting for this so long, and now I can actually finally be put to rest.
Doesn't Thoros of Myr have to die first so we can't resurrect him?
Well, I think Thoros of Myr is going to die second, because then he'll say that Hound is the Lord of Light, or whatever it is, Rowler, whatever it is in the show. I can't remember what they call it.
He picks up the sword.
and he'll
Hound,
be the
the flaming
one to
sword.
he'll be the one to pass on the sword to the Hound. I think Jorah's going to survive. I think he's going to make it out of it because I think the show is going to have more planned for him. I think then Tormund's going to die because that will be the more heartfelt one out of all the deaths, because fans, they know Beric, they know Thoros, but if they died, would you really care?
No.
Not really. They're not in it too much, whereas Tormund is a fan favourite. Although if he does die, if there is sort of like a swell of people charging to come to their aid at the end, I hope that Brienne's one of them because they need to close that.
With the Titanic music.
It'll be like Lord of the Rings where Gimli goes back to Eowyn and says like Aragorn fell, and she has that very sad moment.
In the season promo, in the episode promo, we see more people going beyond the wall. We see people going out of Eastwatch.
We see this in the end of the episode when they walk out the doors. In the background, there's tons of wildlings, but they don't walk out with them in that shot.
No. There is, in the next episode promo,
I know.
There is the gate lifting up and people sprinting out of Eastwatch.
I thought that was sprinting back to Eastwatch. Is that the one with John?
I thought that was...
Is it one with John at the end?
There is one of people sprinting out of Eastwatch.
Oh.
That'll be towards the end.
So I think there might be reinforcement. And a lot of people are speculating what's going to happen. I mean, we see Dany in the episode promo. I don't think she's just going to let them go north alone. I think she's probably going to send her most disposable dragon in the shape of Viserys, and I think Viserys is going to try and kind of help them escape.
Well, we need to remember as well, there's been rumours for this series, and I don't know how true those rumours will be from that script, that official script that was meant to be leaked. There was comments of an ice dragon. Will we see the ice dragon next episode? Who knows? I don't know.
Who knows?
I think that's pretty much...
Well, if a dragon does go north, I think a dragon will die.
Yeah. And
be resurrected as a nice dragon.
I think that's pretty much everything, isn't it? This is probably one of our longest episodes we've done to discuss.
Yeah, this was horrible to write, and I'm so glad we're finally through it.
Yeah. So I guess, you did the intro, Tate, but I guess that would do it for
quickly, our review. The question for next week.
Yes, I was going to say that would...
Can I answer it now?
So, go on.
Go on, someone ask it.
Okay, so we've got two questions again. Viewers at home. So question 1 is going to be, do you think that Cersei is really pregnant? Extensions to those questions, who do you think's the father and why? That was also one of the questions that was asked. I don't know, to make a baby? When a man and a woman love each other very, very much.
No, as in, who is going to be the father if it isn't Jaime? Like, I know it's obviously Jaime, but who would be
Gendry,
the King's Landing hilarious father of the year?
And
how did it? Yeah.
Hold on. And question 2. This is the fun question. Yes, we have our Suicide Squad now. We have our Magnificent Seven. But if you could if you could group together 7 characters of Game of Thrones, could be any. Doesn't have to be ones that are situated next to each other. Any 7 characters at all. Which ones would they be? Which ones would be your dream team to go beyond the wall?
Doesn't even have to be like actual fighters. You could have
me. Not me as a character.
You.
Robert Baratheon, Ned Stark, Gendry, Robb Stark, Oberyn Martell. Was that 5 or 6?
That's 5.
Oh shit! I forgot the rest.
The Mountain, the Hound.
No, obviously. I don't want the Mountain. He bores me. The Hound's too nice. He's still got stories to tell. I don't know. One direwolf. Robb Stark's direwolf. I guess that technically counts as a character. And Jaime Lannister. I want to see them 7 versus the world.
Can I have Robb Stark with Grey Wind's head on top of Robb Stark's body? Can I have that as a character?
Too, where they've got like the dog on top of Jim Carrey's head.
I'm going to take the comical approach here. I want Tyrion going beyond the wall and fighting the wildlings. I want Bronn because the interactions would be hilarious. I want to see what's that little kid in the Eyrie, little Robin.
Is he still alive, by the way?
Fight.
Yeah, he's still alive.
He's still alive. Robin Arryn. I want to see him fight. I maybe want to see Pod without Brienne going in that team. And to be honest, you can fill in the rest with literally anyone. And it would be so funny. But as far as an actual good fighting team, you've got to have Syrio Farrell in there when he was still alive.
Yeah, he's still up there as one of my favorite characters. I don't think he'll make a comeback. But yeah, we've been talking for a very long time. Those are the questions for next week. We'll be back next week with Olga. What's the next episode called?
I don't even know. Wait a sec, let me find out.
Yes, we need to make this official for the ending.
Suicide Squad 2. Brackets, the good one.
Extended edition. Joker edition. Night's King edition.
Wow, we need to...
Death is the enemy. Is the next
Death is the enemy. So we'll be back next week with our review on episode 6, Death is the Enemy. Thank you to everyone that's joined us in the chat today. Thank you for all the comments. It's been great as usual. We'll be back again next Tuesday for our review on that. Get commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.